Good morning. It is Tuesday, and today we are going to be looking at how to analyze the um, the structure of a story as a whole. So everything from the genre of that story to the unique ideas that set that story apart, um, to the who, what, when, where, and why of what happens in the story. I want you to use this method to outline your own story before you start writing so that you know it well enough to where you can explain to anyone exactly what happens, who it happens to, who the characters are, and what the story is about, right? What the theme, what the central dramatic argument is. So, as an example, and you're going to hate Finding Nemo after this class because we use it. I use it for every example, apparently. Again, it's just a perfect story. Let's look at Finding Nemo. So I think that Finding Nemo is adventure and drama. Right now, everything is dramatic in storytelling, but I think that it is specifically meant to be a dramatic story where there's a loss of of someone close to the main character, and they're afraid that they might lose that person forever, so they have to go and find them. Right, that's a dramatic storyline. And adventure, because he has to go on an adventure to get what he wants. Right, his goal is at the end of his adventure that he has to go on. The unique ideas about Finding Nemo. Um, I mean, the story itself is has been told many times. Right, you have to go and save someone or find something that's been taken from you to try to get back to where you were before. But on the journey, you realize that you have to change if you actually want to get what you want. So the unique idea here for Finding Nemo is anthropomorphic sea creatures, right? So fish, starfish, seagulls, they're all speaking English. They're all able to communicate with one another. They all have lives as if they were, sentient human beings. Only they are sea creatures. So that's what sets this story apart from all the other stories like it. So we need to know the setting of whatever you're writing, and so the setting of this would be the ocean, specifically the Great Barrier Reef, and then Sydney, Australia. Right, that's basically it. Your setting might be more specific, it might be more broad, but the setting is important because it gives us clues about where we are, what we should expect from the characters that we meet. It allows us to make assumptions, and you can either confirm those assumptions in your writing with your story, with your characters, or you can subvert our assumptions by doing things in your writing where something happens that we didn't expect, right? So in Finding Nemo, when Nemo goes into the aquarium, he's afraid, right? These are weird fish living in this aquarium. They have this like crazy volcano god that they pray to. And so he expects that he's going to be in trouble, and then they subvert our expectations by showing us that these fish are all part of a closely knit friend group. They're like a family of the aquarium, and so Nemo becomes a part of the group, right? And so Nemo's expectations were that he was going to get beat up or whatever, get killed, and instead he finds that the danger that he assumes isn't actually dangerous at all, and that through teamwork, he can accomplish anything. You can accomplish whatever he wants. When is it? Modern day, right? I mean, this was made at the time that it was made, and it was about the time that it was made. Your setting, as far as like the time frame that it happens in, is important as well, because that allows us to make assumptions about what's going on in the world at the time. If you set it back in the 40s, then depending on what time in the 40s, it's World War II. So that needs to be something that's addressed. Or it might be a story that deals with things that were going on just before, just after World War II. If you set it back in, I don't know, 2,000 years ago, that's the time the Bible was written or whatever. So like we're going to have expectations about what the world was like then. So time is very important because it helps to paint a picture in the mind of the reader of what's happening. Who is the characters? Super important. The most important thing in your story is character. Marlin, Nemo, Dory, Gil. Gil is the the main character inside the aquarium. He's the one that teaches Nemo not to be afraid. Um, he's sort of he's like the opposite of Marlin, right? He takes chances and makes mistakes and gets hurt, and he's still around. So Nemo can kind of see the other side of the coin uh, in his friendship with Gil. And there are a ton of other characters, but these are the most important ones to me. So I want you to be able to tell us about the characters just briefly. Later this week on Thursday, we're going to have another assignment for outlining, but we're going to be specifically looking at character and relationships. And you're going to outline all the relationships between your characters in your story. So here we just want you to tell us exactly who these people are, but just briefly. And then what? So what happens? So I would love for you to all, before you start writing, know at least generally what the beginning and the end of your story look like. So the beginning of the story is just showing us the life that these characters are living, right? Nemo starts out a little differently because we see that event at the beginning that shapes Marlin into the worrying fish that he is. But then we see everyday life. We see how Marlin and Nemo are living. We see Marlin's overprotectiveness and what that's doing to Nemo. And then we see that inciting incident, the incident that kicks the story into gear, right? At that moment, everything changes, and that's Nemo being captured. So, I need you to know what the everyday life, what the beginning part of your story is, and that can be very short, right? Um, and a lot of stories start in the middle somewhere, not at the very beginning. Not like there was a man named Marlin, and every day he would protect his son from danger. Right? They start right in the middle, right? Like getting ready for school, right? Um, there's so many good examples of how to begin a story, and we'll be looking at that tomorrow. But what I want you to do is be able to tell me what the beginning of your story is, what happens that to your characters that make it so that they have to make choices to go and do something to change. What is it about your story that makes the story happen? Um, and then the end. I need you to know what happens at the end. I need you to know how you want to finish it. You might not know every detail, but I need you to know, generally how you want the story to end. The middle is something that you can find on the page, right? You start off with what you know where you're going, and then the middle is kind of the fun part of getting there. So I want the middle of your story to be kind of like finding your way around a new neighborhood where you're headed somewhere, you know where you came from, but you're just kind of driving down different places, checking it out, right? Seeing what stores and coffee shops are around, and just sort of getting the lay of the land while you're on your way to a destination. And then lastly, why? Um, why does this story exist? Why do you need to tell this story? Is this a personal story to you? Right? Like Nemo feels personal to me because of my son. Right? Like the idea of my son, being captured and taken away, or getting lost and not being able to find him. Like that's terrifying to me, and it really is something I relate to. So, what about your story is relatable to the reader? Right? Like what are we getting out of this? Like you've said, hey, I've got something that I think you should read, and we say, okay, why? What's it about? So you can tell us what happens in the story, right? That's the what. But the reason that this story needs to be told, right? The central dramatic argument, the theme, the ideas that you're exploring, the truth that you're seeking through telling this story. Those are the things that really mean something to the reader. So I want you to be able to tell us the why. And here's sort of my write up on what Finding Nemo is about, right? Why it's important. The story is about parenting and what we do for and to the ones we love, right? Marlin has an extreme trauma earlier in his life, causing him to become a completely different person, Fish. Marlin is no longer the happy, funny, optimistic clownfish he once was. He's now living in constant fear, especially the fear of losing his only son. Marlin is protecting Nemo, but he's also ruining his life. There's something to be said here about the trade off between freedom and security, and the constant balancing act we go through as a society and as families to make sure we have enough of both. The central dramatic, this should be narrative argument, argument, I do that sometimes, is the best way to show, is that the best way to show our children we love them is to keep them safe at all costs. Argument. Marlin learns that the opposite is true and that he must let go of both his control over Nemo and his fear of losing the last piece of that which he loved at the beginning of the story. Right. So I guess this is the antithesis, right, of the central dramatic argument. The antithesis of the central dramatic argument is that the best way to show children is keeping safe at all costs. Marlin learns that the opposite is true, right? And so he learns that by embodying that, the opposite of that antithesis, that he becomes a new fish, and he gives Nemo the space that he needs to grow and become the best Nemo he can be. All right, so this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take a story that you know really well, like Finding Nemo, and do the same thing I did. Tell me the genre. Give me the unique idea that sets it apart from all the other stories that are like it. Where does it happen? When does it happen? Who are the characters? What happens? And why? Your analysis of the central dramatic argument, of the narrative of the story, why it exists, what it's exploring, what emotions it's trying to, to delve into, what truth is it seeking. And do that for that one story that you know well. And then once you've done that, you're ready to outline your own story. So that is it. All right, everybody at home, have a great day. I will see some of you soon. Tomorrow is a holiday, but there's no reason you can't keep working. Otherwise, have a wonderful Tuesday, and I will talk to you later.